So William is not taking any more crap from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. He's now considering all options, including legal routes, to stop his younger brother, who he views as a treacherous soul these days, from exploiting Princess Diana for money and allowing Meghan Markle to exploit Princess Diana for money so she is in some way connected by the public with that amazing woman. And this is all about the fact that Harry is going against an agreement that was made by the brothers at the 20th anniversary of Diana's death to no longer exploit her memory, to stop talking about her for good. But William has learned of this plan by Harry and Meghan to mark the 30th anniversary of Diana's death next year with a major documentary series likely for Netflix, which of course does go against that principled agreement. Now, what's interesting to me, and what we're going to discuss today, is whether William actually would be able to do this. Because of course he can appeal to Harry's morality, but does Harry have a sense of morality anymore? I would argue not, after the way that he has trashed his own family for the past 6 years. Legally, does what was a gentleman agreement made in public really mean that Harry could be stopped from doing this? I would be surprised. But I'm going to take you through this reporting. Then we'll get analysis from our royal mastermind and Prince Harry's biographer, Angela Levin. But this is very interesting reporting from Radar Online, which says that Prince Harry is set to lawyer up on Prince Harry to stop him and Meghan churning out what they describe as a sickening Princess Diana 30th death anniversary doc. Now, this story is written by Aaron Tinney, a long-time British tabloid reporter with connections to the royal family. And he writes, Prince William is said to be prepared to take legal advice over plans by his brother Prince Harry to produce a documentary marking the 30th anniversary of their mother, Princess Diana's death. Project sources have told Radar Online the future king finds the project sickening and deeply depressing. And distressing. Their words actually are distressing, I should get that right. Harry and his wife Meghan are understood to be developing the Diana documentary project as part of their multi-million-dollar deal with the streaming service following their decision to step back from royal duties. Sources said the film would examine Diana's life, her treatment by the media and the monarchy, and the impact of her death on her sons. According to insiders, the prospect of revisiting Diana's story in a commercial production has reopened old wounds between the brothers. But one source said Harry, I would argue Meghan, is determined to proceed. Harry is utterly convinced that commemorating his mother is something he has an inherent right to do as her son. In his mind, Diana's memory is not the property of the institution or something that requires his brother's consent. He strongly resists the idea that the palace or anyone else should have the authority to decide how her life is remembered or presented. The source added William's growing anger over the prospect of the film being in planning has been intensified by Markle's role behind the scenes. And that's interesting to me because I think William would concede that Harry at least has a right to talk about their mother. But for William, the idea that Meghan is going to keep trying to piggyback on Diana, which is something that she has done now for some time, is of course going to be disturbing. And the source added, what has struck a nerve for William is the extent of Meghan's role in the project. He feels that allowing her to influence or derive any benefit from Diana's legacy crosses a deeply personal boundary, and he experiences it as a betrayal of his mother, rather than a tribute. And I think it is. Because what you've seen from Harry and Meghan is that they have tried to exploit Diana's memory to back up their bid for the destruction of the British royal family. And I repeat for those of you who believe Harry's narrative that Diana was highly critical of her husband, King Charles, and yes, publicly made clear that she believed he should never take the throne because he was going to marry this divorcee in Camilla, and that the crown should pass directly to William. But did she ever try and destroy the British monarchy? Absolutely not. Quite the opposite. Another insider said Harry's motivations stem from long-held grievances. Harry has long felt that his mother's life and death have been poorly handled by those meant to protect her. He believes that at critical moments when Diana needed empathy and support, the institution failed to provide it. As a result, he does not see the monarchy as a credible custodian of her legacy and is adamant that her story should be told outside palace structures. Well, you can understand that that is how Harry is going to feel, right? And that's probably where William does have some agreement with Harry. Certainly, they both ask questions about the circumstances relating to her death. But what this article misses is the fact that that's the reason William and Harry produced these two landmark documentaries, one for the BBC, one for ITV, for the 20th anniversary, because that was their option of actually preserving her legacy. That was how they chose to do it. And so to say now that in some way that 20th anniversary documentary was hijacked by the palace is just wrong. They've already done it. Harry is doing this for money. Meghan is doing this for money and clout.
I need you to do something for me right now. It is free. It is easy. It is simple. Just hit that subscribe button on YouTube. That's because over 50% of you watching this video haven't done that yet.
Radar Online goes on to report that that position places Harry directly at odds with William. Sources said the Prince of Wales views the project as exploitative. Well, it clearly is. From William's point of view, this crosses a line that none of their past disputes ever approached. He feels that transforming his mother's life into marketable content is deeply distasteful, and he firmly believes Diana herself would have been appalled by the idea of her story being repackaged for profit, especially by a global streaming platform. The involvement of Netflix has further inflamed tension, and this is where things get interesting, because of course the company also produced The Crown, a dramatization of royal history that William is widely reported to dislike. Netflix is a huge trigger for William, a source said. He has never hidden his anger about The Crown, and this feels like reopening a fight he thought should be over. And just a reminder, of course, that when it comes to The Crown, William was particularly disgusted by the fact that not only did they recreate the death scene, they stored a smashed up version of the car. They made their mum come back to life. They were really creepy in terms of the presentation of Carol Middleton in the drama to suggest that she in some way had conspired with Catherine in order to meet William. So there's a whole load that William doesn't like about The Crown. But I think he doesn't disagree that, of course, a private company can do whatever they want. The difference is that William felt that Harry was almost endorsing The Crown. Do you remember in that interview with James Corden when he was asked if he watched it, and he actually said, yeah, I have. And I think it's better than a lot of stuff that's written in the newspapers. So that's William's real problem with Netflix and The Crown. The fact that Harry gave this drama, which caused so many issues for the family, a tacit endorsement. Now, Radar goes on in its report. Sources now said William is exploring ways to halt any 30th death anniversary project on their tragic mother. A palace aide warned William is prepared to take this as far as necessary. He is actively exploring every available obstacle that could be placed in the project's path, from legal avenues to institutional influence, and he is willing to use whatever leverage exists to challenge it. Now, this is where I have to bring a reality check to this situation, I'm afraid. I understand why William feels this way. I actually feel his anger. I feel his disgust. I think he's right to feel that. Do I believe that there is any realistic legal route to him in some way stopping this documentary? I do not believe so. I do not believe so. Because there was nothing signed between William and Harry. It was a gentleman's agreement made public between brothers. William felt it deeply. Harry was able to throw it out the door the moment Meghan Markle came along. And I just think William will absolutely consult with lawyers. he might make a threat, but in reality, I don't believe he will be able to stop this project on a legal basis. But Angela Levin, that doesn't make it morally right, because of course, what we know is that Harry absolutely was in lockstep with William, that after the 20th anniversary, after these two landmark documentaries for the BBC and ITV, that would be it in terms of big media around anniversaries of Diana's death. That was a decision they made as brothers. And I think by going against this decision, William has every right to feel betrayed by Harry. I think that is absolutely fair. I just doubt that he will actually be able to stop this. Am I wrong?
Well, I'm not a lawyer, so I've got no idea about that. But he is the heir to the throne, and I don't think that there are many companies that really want him to be absolutely disgusted by them. I don't think that's a good idea for anybody. And I would hope that if he couldn't do it via legal things, that actually to be very, very sure how you could actually affect something like that, that someone would not want to have that for the heir to the throne, or even next year. I hope not, but you never know.
But Harry has no shame about this stuff, Angela, does he?
No, but the company that's doing it might not want to do that, because it would be very difficult for them should they want to do anything else. If they wanted to come to anything that he was at.
Okay, so this is a really interesting point, Angela. William, so what you're saying is William could effectively appeal directly to Netflix or whatever streaming giant was going to take this on. The slight problem with that, of course, is that now that there's a first look arrangement in place rather than an exclusive deal, Harry and Meghan, if Netflix turned it down, could offer it up to Apple TV or Amazon. But it is an interesting point, because Netflix has gone into business with Idris Elba and King Charles on this new documentary. And you're right, they might not want to rule out future projects with William and Catherine. So you're saying perhaps the warning could be made directly to Netflix. I hadn't thought of that.
I'm sure about that. And the other thing is that there are excuses why Meghan can't do that, because she's shown very much that she doesn't like the royals, and she's, looking after this. She can't do what's going to be necessary in such a big film. And I think you can say that she's going in with a wrong attitude because she doesn't like the royal family, and you can go through several hundred things of how she's been about the royal family, that she's going in with a very different decision of how she's going to show it. She's going to show it about the family that is going to be disgusting. She's going to say it about nobody looking after her or saying, how are you, like you just mentioned before. That's that. And also that she has destroyed Harry. I think you can possibly do something like that, because he is so different from what he was, and he's going in there. He might have a certain amount of absolute rights that he can do, but Meghan doesn't. So you can say that actually I don't want this, and which channel will want to do that?
No, it's a good point. It's a good point. I actually think you're completely right, Angela. That's where the appeal should be, actually, because there are only a few of these companies, and Amazon recently did the big special with King Charles, narrated by Kate Winslet. So there's some type of relationship there. Apple TV did the documentary, with Prince William and Eugene Levy, the star of Schitt's Creek. So maybe there is a chance there, actually, although the view from Hollywood insiders, Angela, has always been it would just be irresistible to Netflix. The idea of a Diana documentary with Harry involved would be irresistible.
I've got something else possible. Please. There is Harry. If he does do this, William will never let him do anything for the royal family. Absolutely nothing. So he's got to think about that carefully.
He has to think about the repercussions of his actions, although I think maybe Harry is understanding that the horse has bolted on that front, Angela. I did want to ask you too about this new video of Harry released by the Halo Trust. And it's not so much what he says, Angela, but how he looks. Because Nancy Sidley said on this, Harry does not look well. It's a very important cause. But do you agree with Nancy Sidley saying that Harry doesn't look well?
He looks extremely ill, doesn't he? There's no life in his face. He's very pale, and he looks, it's not really concentrating on things. He sounds as if he does, but he just looks that he can't do anything, actually. He's in a very bad state.
Yeah, indeed. Now, Angela, I have to talk to you about what is going on with Richard Eden, the diary editor of the Daily Mail, who has quite brutally turned on Andrew Mountbatten, Windsor's daughter, Beatrice and Eugenie. I'll show you how in a little moment. But he posted on X, I've defended Princess Beatrice for years, but after reading the Epstein files, I now feel betrayed. It's time for her and her sister, Princess Eugenie, to speak out. That actually prompted Naomi Sky 15 to say Beatrice was leaking to Richard Eden. She is the source of all the negative Catherine stories as well. I always thought it was her mother. Of course, we don't have evidence of that, but it's interesting to see how this turning from Richard is being viewed. But he made a couple of videos about this, Angela, explaining his position.
Yeah, actually, I have never known a journalist who would say, you know, they cheated on me, they told me the wrong thing. I mean, when you're a journalist, you talk to the person. If you feel that they're going to do that, you don't do it, you don't write it. So he's actually saying she's absolutely messed me up because I trusted her. Well, I think somehow if you're a journalist, you're always in, you know, is it 90-10 or 50-50 or something? But it's a very, very brave and difficult thing to say. That's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point, Angela. And it does, I guess, add to this feeling, well, was there something else going on there? Do you know what I mean? Like, was she leaking story? Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. I mean, Angela, I actually do agree with the thrust of his argument. I've said for some time this idea that Beatrice and Eugenie were just totally innocent parties in this. I don't personally agree with that because of their age. But I also understand it's difficult given it's their parents.
Yes, I mean, it's very hard to say if you have parents who behave like that, whose sexual behavior is just disgusting. What do you do? I mean, I think I'd walk out, but that's me. I'm a walk out sort of a person. But I understand that they didn't want to. But what is very difficult to say, and I've written it out here, the things that they didn't actually like, what he feels that he's been so badly talked about, because of his, that despite hoping the princesses would not take after their parents, the evidence suggests that they are too deeply connected to their parents' scandalous dealings. So, I mean, it's not that they just helped their parents or that they were trying to stop them doing it. They were involved in it and with it.
Well, yeah, exactly. And the thing is, Angela, I actually agree with that. But even just take it back one step, right? Like my parents, I adore them. They would never want to put me in a difficult position. But just say they said to me, oh, Dan, we're taking you to meet a friend of ours. He's just been released from prison. I would ask questions. I would do my own research. Of course, I would trust my mum and dad, but I'd say, Mum and Dad, this guy was a sex trafficker of children. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not coming with you. It's very obvious that you can do that. And they sort of had a responsibility to do that in their 20s, I would argue, as princesses.
Absolutely. But when he came out and in Florida, after he came out of prison, they then had a party. And I think, how could you say you would go to a party after that? If you knew it, if you didn't, you would want to have some idea of this man. And if you heard this, say, why was he in prison? And if you listened and saw that, you just go home. I mean, I wouldn't stay there and, wait and see what somebody wanted to mess around with me. I just wouldn't have it. Absolutely makes you feel sick, absolutely sick. And especially at that age, they were 20 and 19 when they went to see him. Attractive girls, full of energy. How could a mother do that? I just don't understand. And how could the children who've got brains actually let her do that? It's just
Indeed.
not, it doesn't make any sense. And you actually had to stand up for that, surely. If you have somebody in your home who's drinking nonstop and gets drunk all the time, I mean, are you going to do that as well? Are you going to join in because you feel that that's the right thing to do? You either leave it or you get someone there as a doctor or you walk out. I mean, you can't take up what your parents are doing, particularly excitedly that this is going to be great fun, when you are with a man who is repellent.
Yeah, that's the thing, Angela. There were warning signs for them, and I feel desperately sorry for them in terms of this idea that they have to now in some way separate themselves from the parents who they love. That's incredibly difficult. Where I don't feel sorry for them is the decisions that they made, because as adults, you make your choice, and you made your choice to go and have lunch with this pedophile, this prolific pedophile, days after his release from jail. I think they knew. I think they knew. You don't go and meet someone days out of jail and then it doesn't come up at all in the discussion. Maybe they were misled by their mother, but they should have done their own research. So unfortunately, I think that visit really does damn them.
But a man like that, he's not going to sit down and talk about the weather and all sorts of interesting things and what they're doing with their exams and all that. He'll have a certain sparkle in his eye and a certain way of letting you know you're going to get it. We're all adults and you just know if somebody is going to, there we are, you look at his face, look at that. It is eating somebody up and it looks disgusting. And I think that you have to be you notice that and you run off. I mean, you see that if somebody comes up to you in a party or on the tube or anything and starts talking to you, you can see, are they asking you about the time or are they starting a discussion that actually could lead you in a very difficult action?